Hello and welcome back to Greg Way Enterprises Week 10. This week we're going to be talking about self-image and the importance of it to your career. In sales, one of the most key foundational aspects that you will ever accomplish is the foundation of self-image, having a positive self-image. If you show up somewhere to sell someone something and you go to visit with them or talk to them or try to sell them or try to persuade them, if you don't have a solid, strong self-image, you're going to get wiped out. It's that simple. So what we're going to be talking about is a man by the name of Dan, who was our local town alcoholic, our drunk. He was a fellow that you would see walking up and down the street on the side of buildings and basically passed out. And I, one day when I was doing my production at a local building, saw that he started to continually go there each day, and he would sit there with his alcohol in the bag and he would be pretty much passed out on the side of the building. And I thought I would make it my goal to try to get to know him, to try to befriend him, to try to see what his story was, and to try to uplift him and help him. And so that's what I did, and that's the story we're going to be talking about today. Let's go back about a year and a half ago. I would pull up each day and I would see this man quite often, slumped over, and the same filthy sweats and clothes and the long hair and the beard and whatever. It's pretty much what you can imagine seeing when you watch a movie. And one day I walked by and I says, "How are you?" And he glared at me and looked at me and kind of growled, and I walked by and I kept doing it and over until finally he started to respond a little bit. And then I noticed when I would pull up, he would kind of perk up and his eyes would have a little bit of life to them. And so as I got to know him a little bit more, as I felt more comfortable, one day I sat down next to him in my attire that I am dressed in now, sat down on the sidewalk area on the cement, and I introduced myself. And I asked him what his name was. And he told me his name was Dan. And he told me that he lived right across the street. Well, I knew that because as I would drive by, you always have one house in a neighborhood that looks like a junkyard. And that was Dan's. And there were times that I would see him sitting out front by the edge of his driveway in a chair with a bottle in his hand. And I started there, and then each day I would visit with him a little bit longer. I would budget my time in such a way that I had time to talk to him. And I got to know him, and he came originally from New York, and when he was a kid, he was raised with a sister, and his mother and father didn't have much to do with him. They put all of their time and efforts and energy and money and everything into the sister, and so he was pretty much destined for failure from the beginning by being just shunned and an outcast, and for some reason no one wanted anything to do with Dan. And he grew up around the Arlington racetracks and Belmont and then Del Mar, and he always wanted to be a jockey, but he didn't quite have the skill to be a jockey, but he's just a little guy. So he started to work in the stables. And as he started to work in the stables, he made some friends that weren't that great, some bad friends, bad associations. And he got into drugs and into drinking at a young age, and he got a girl pregnant. Well, as the story goes on, as I got to know Dan over the weeks, I found out that he had a daughter. I asked him if he had any family, and he told me the story of how he got a gal pregnant and had only seen the girl a couple times. And I wanted to try to reconnect him with the daughter, and I wanted to try to give him a purpose to live and have a goal. But more importantly, I wanted to offer him human kindness and love because he's a human being. And I started to see Dan each day when I would pull up, stand up and perk up and wave and walk towards me. And on the days that we would talk, and on the days he wasn't behind the stores, he would be in his driveway. And I would notice when I would go over, he would perk up and he would try to walk across the street and dodge the cars, and he'd get upset saying how the cars wouldn't stop for him, and he would stumble around. And I said, "You know what, buddy?" I says, "When I'm done each day, I'll just stop by and I'll visit with you." I had an opportunity to get to know him on a personal level and to learn his story. and to find out that he really, really didn't want to be an alcoholic, but he got drug into it. He continued to drink, he continued to make bad choices, and it was a domino effect. And how he would go to the store 2, 3 times a day to get alcohol, and then he would go to another store because he was so embarrassed. And one day I asked him if he wanted to make a change in his life, if he would like to meet his daughter, if there was, what would he like? What was something he would like? And I know that his self-image was such that it was just absolutely destroyed. He said he would like to get out of the clothes that he has. He would like to be able to clean up his yard. He'd like to be able to clean up the inside of his home. And he had some one broken down car, 2 broken down trucks in his carport. And so I said, well, let me see what I can do to try to help you. And I was trying to gather people up. And during that time period, I drove by one day and he was completely 100% passed out on his lawn, right below his steps, and his pants were down to his knees. And I pulled over, I lifted him up, I lifted his sweats up over his hips, and I carried him up the stairs, and I took him in his house. If you can imagine an outhouse, the worst latrine you've ever been in, the worst public restroom times at times 10. He'd been going to the bathroom on the carpet, on the floor, and in buckets. His plumbing was gone, everything was gone, it was shot. That was at the point that I knew that Dan was at rock bottom. So over a period of weeks, I gathered up and organized the Boy Scouts to clean up his front yard. I got together with all of my home improvement friends I do the marketing for to come in and do his plumbing, to put in a new toilet, to carpeting, to, in some areas, tear everything down to the studs, to sheetrock, to paint, to completely redo his home. And I took him. At one point, he asked me if I would take him to a bank, which is up in Park City, a city by ours. And I had every reason not to do it, but I finally did drive off telling him I was busy. But I got about a half a block down the road and I turned around and I realized that it was the right thing to do. And I turned around and I thought, Greg, you've come way too far now with him. Let's finish this. Let's go all the way. Let's help him. I said, you know what, Dan, I'm going to help you. And I took him to the bank. I met with the managers. He was in getting some money. People kind of shunned him and walked away from him. And I got to know a little bit more about his story from the bank manager, who told me that his parents died, left him a condo in Park City, that he got thrown out of there because of the shape and the disarray and not paying homeowner association fees. Sold it. That's how he bought the place in Heber. I'm leaving with him, and I said, how long's it been since you've had a good meal, Dan? And he said, I don't ever eat. He said, I drink. And I said, let me take you to lunch. And I'll always remember walking into this restaurant and the looks that we got as I sat and I ate with him and showed him love and kindness. Afterwards, we went to Target, bought him some clothes. He was so excited to have some clothes. And I said, this is on me. This is something that I want to do. This is my gift to you as a friend. I'll always remember as Dan sat in my truck and cried. In fact, one of the reasons I didn't even want to give him a ride was fear that what he would do to the inside of my truck. He was so filthy. But that would have been wrong. His home was being cleaned up. The outside was being cleaned up. Things were being put in order. And he said, can I make a phone call? And I let him use my cell phone. And he called a friend of his named Eugene that is a racetrack owner in the state of Wyoming. And Eugene was able to pull him and get him out of his home, eventually get him in some assisted living, finish the process of finalizing all of his affairs, get him completely into rehab and cleaned up. But here's a story when Dan went to rehab. He asked me, he says, Greg, will you come and see me? And I stopped by to see him. And he says, will you watch a movie with me? And he wanted to watch the movie. I believe it had Jeff Bridges in its Secretariat. It was about a horse which was raised and trained to lose. It was a horse that everyone had written off. It was a horse that was basically a pace horse, that they held it back, and it was never given an opportunity to meet its potential until finally someone came along, saw the potential in it. We watched the movie, and as I was leaving, Dan looked at me and he said, you don't believe in giving up on anyone, do you? Even if they're broke. I said, well, no, Dan, not at all. And then I remembered in my mind, that was one of the lines in the movie. Just because something's broke, you don't give up on it. I don't want to drag the story out too long, but Dan is on his feet now. He is cleaned up. He's gone through rehab. He has a new place where he's living. He's sold his home. His life is in order. He's cut his hair, shaved his beard, and he's a very productive part of society. I want to say to you that regardless of your station in life, regardless of anything you've done in your past, don't let that define who you are. Find good people to associate with. Take small steps, take baby steps, take one step at a time. Go back in my 25-week series. Try to go through that, systematically dissect it. Pick out one trait, one facet of sales you want to master, and do that each week. I would implore you to do that. Continue to go through them. If you need any personal help, you can contact me at gregwayenterprises@gmail.com or through my website at gregwayenterprises.com. I hope you like and you subscribe and you share and you hit the notification bell and you do everything you can do to try to stay connected with me. But more importantly, I want you to know if you have family or friends that have a desire to sell, to learn how to sell, to start their own business. That's what I did for 16 and a half years. I was on the road, and I let people use my sales techniques and strategies, and I taught and I trained and I mentored them, and they made a ton of money. I'm here to help you. I want to help you. We're going to be going now for another 65 weeks straight, and we're going to systematically dissect different concepts, and we're going to tell them in story form. Start at the beginning. Believe in yourself. Know that you have purpose. Know that you have worth. Know that you're loved. Know that there are people out there that are willing to help you. Know that regardless, and I know you folks aren't where Dan was at, but regardless of where you're at, we can take you all the way to the top. We can take you all the way to the top. It starts with the desire. If you will show no more than a desire, just an inkling to try, that's where it begins. Try, think, work, focus, go through these concepts. I'm here to help you. Leave comments, contact me. I look forward to talking with you next week. Have a great week. Stay relentless and go get them. Goodbye.